Hey everyone, it's Christine Gritmon here, live with Social. I do this show every Friday at 12 noon Eastern Time, and it's live here on Facebook Live every week, and I talk with a different guest every week. Why isn't this sharing? Grr. Anyway, I talk with different guests every week about social media. Usually it's a fellow social media professional. By the way, my voice might sound a little weird. I had my tonsils out last week, so I'm using like the 15 minutes of pain-free talking I can get to do this today. So today my guest is actually not a social media professional. It is a social media amateur.
Well, I don't know about amateur.
It is a social media user. It's audience. It's the product. And he may look familiar from my various social media platforms. This is Mr. Gregory Gritmon.
Hello.
Which is why we're comfortable sitting so very close together here in our attic. So I figured that I would talk to Greg a little bit about social media from the non-professional marketer side and just kind of hear his thoughts on the platforms, because whatever I'm hearing, it's all about the features and how to monetize and all these strategies and stuff. But when it comes down to it, the people we're trying to talk to on social media are generally the users. So, user Greg.
Hi.
Hi. Tell us a little bit about you and social media. When did you first start using social media that you can recall?
Oh my God, back in the days of MySpace.
Were you ever on Friendster?
I was not on Friendster. MySpace was where I began, and it was purely social. Like, companies weren't really doing so much on there.
Yeah, I know you were there by 2006 because that's when we met. But why did you join MySpace? Do you recall?
Probably because like all my friends were joining MySpace, and it was social pressure,
All right, fair enough. And
same reason I switched to Facebook.
And like, how did you use it?
It was mostly like that. I personally use it as sort of a two-factor thing. One is as sort of like a journal. Like I like Facebook's like on this day feature, so I can look back and say, oh, look, I remember those things that happened.
And you used the blog feature on MySpace, I remember.
Yes, a little bit. And again, it was sort of that, again, not necessarily a blog for other people as much as it was sort of like, oh, I like this feature and I can look back at it someday. And then with Facebook, I use it for more consumption, which is just like almost like a news feed, as a lot of people do. Yeah. And it's interesting how it's changed now that companies are on it.
Yeah.
Because it's completely changed the dynamic. It's sort of like when something's popular and then your parents and your family join, all of a sudden you have to change the way you use it. It's similar with the idea that now, like, the cool little companies that I used were on it. Oh, now big, giant, mega corporations are on it as well. And sort of figuring out where that balance lies in terms of consuming and sharing.
So wait, how did the user experience change for you when the brands came on board?
I've definitely noticed that there's sort of two mentalities of it, which is a brand trying to connect with people. And then the other part is a brand trying to announce their next special. And I've actually been on several groups where it's like, this is your community group. And the entire group is just businesses being like, here's our special, here's our next special. Now use my service. And it essentially becomes just an ad board. And I leave those groups. And I've actually gotten yelled at when I've participated on those group boards, being like, businesses don't just connect with me.
Oh, are we not live anymore? Can people comment and tell us if they see us?
Hello.
Hello, because we can't see ourselves. Can someone comment? Are we not here?
Oops, wait, is it blooping again?
Are we here?
Bloop,
can people see us?
Bloop, bloop, bloop.
All right, let's hope people can see us. Can someone please comment? Okay, thank you. Thanks, Paul. All right. So anyway, so you've gotten in trouble being on groups, being like, "Yo, businesses, can you not?"
Oh yeah. So I'd say to the board, like, I came here to like see the goings on in my community, and all I'm seeing is ads. Can we at least keep the ads to like one a day?
Yeah, a lot of groups do have that. Yeah.
And like the admins of the boards would be like, anybody can post anything. That's the point of the group. And I'm just like, all right, bye.
Yeah. It's like, gee, I thought the point of the group was to interact.
Right, exactly. So, and I've definitely found that I do engage with brands and companies that are, it's really, what am I getting out of it? A lot of it is, what am I getting out of your content? And so just telling me your specials tonight isn't necessarily going to get me to be interested in your brand.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you are talking about an event you're doing, like events definitely are a bigger deal.
Mm-hmm.
And, or just talking about, like, if you are restaurants are always
Yeah,
the
I was
default to
gonna
go
say,
to. If you're
they're
a
really
restaurant,
pissing you off.
huh?
They're really pissing you off,
No,
apparently.
like a restaurant that's just announcing their specials isn't going to do it. But if they're like, here's information about how there's a movement toward locally grown produce, and that's why we use that in all of our dishes.
I see.
It's like, oh, okay, this is news, and it's also connecting to your brand.
I like that.
And things like that.
Now, to that end, I wanted to back up for a second and talk about the platforms that you are on and the platforms that you aren't on.
Mm-hmm. So I'm on Facebook for the reasons I mentioned, which is that it's both my ability to sort of connect with people and announce my goings on, as well as follow news and connect with sort of brands that I'm interested in. And I'm on LinkedIn from a professional standpoint, which is the resume and the looking into companies and seeing sort of interesting news happening in the spaces that I am professionally, which is
Mm-hmm.
product management and tech,
Mm-hmm.
and media. So that's pretty much it. I've got a Twitter account. I've got an Instagram account, but I never find myself like going there because just seeing a bunch of images or videos or just seeing someone's 240 character tweet, like that doesn't engage me
280
personally.
That's interesting to me, and we'll talk about why I'm a little surprised you're not more into Twitter and Instagram later. But one thing that is interesting to me is that we use social media a little bit differently, not just because I'm a marketer, because I use it plenty as a person too. I do plenty of lay use. But what was I going to say? Oh yeah, Facebook. You are very into groups.
I am.
I have not been as into groups, but I want to hear from you about your group's experience.
Sure. So I've actually noticed something interesting, which is that the groups are very much to me about connecting with a group of people of a similar mindset. But what I've definitely noticed is that as I have the groups to do that with, I'm not doing it on my personal wall.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, I used to post a lot of like, oh, this comic book movie's coming out and I'm really excited for it. But now I have sort of a comic booky movie group that I'm a member of. And so if I'm going to discuss it, I can discuss it with my, maybe 100 friends that are into that.
Mm-hmm.
Or I can go to this board where there's 1,000 or 10,000 people that are into that, and get much more interesting, engaging conversation going back and forth. And I've definitely found that part of when I share things is it's much more rewarding to get the validation. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited about this movie coming out. And if like one or two people is just like, oh yeah, I'm excited for that movie too. It's different than when you have a group of people being like, and here's something interesting about that movie. Oh, did you hear about this cast member? And
it enriches your experience in another way.
And so now I find myself sharing things specifically to start a conversation, not just to be like, here's something for the world, I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a similar thing on the Fuck Yeah Parenting board. Can I say that on your live stream?
Sure fucking can.
But yeah, that group is great for non-judgmental parents where you can share both interesting parenting stuff and advice, but also like, oh my God, my freaking kids are driving me nuts. How true is this meme about how difficult it is to be a parent? And you get a lot of people being sympathetic, and the groups I'm a member of are definitely the ones that where the admins and the community are fostering interest, like supportive conversation. And then of course you have the trolls and stuff like that. And like, if they're able to take over a conversation and the admins or the community let that happen, then you leave the group. Like that's definitely something I'm noticing about groups. And I imagine this is also true of brands and then the communities that the brands build, which is, are you supporting each other and engaging in an interesting conversation, or are you there to debate something and be kind of like judgmental? Like I've even been on boards where someone posts something I disagree with and then they get like pounced on.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, guys, like simmer down. Like they didn't say it in a mean way or an awful way.
Chill?
Like people have different opinions. And if you can engage.
Your opinion is wrong.
Yeah. There's a great, on one of the groups, there was a great image that was based on a quote of one of the posts that sort of started the group, which was, it's fine, you're wrong, but it's fine and it's cool. Everything you're saying is wrong, but it's great. Like, it's just like the both of them things where it's just like, you can have a different.
Now, what are the good admins doing to foster the good discussions? As you pointed out, they are sort of cutting trolls off at the pass to some degree, but how are they getting good discussions going as opposed to having it be kind of dead?
No, that's actually a good point, which is that, yeah, it's not just them saying, do this or don't do this, and here's the rules. And it's interesting how just saying the rules, even if I agree with the rules, it makes me sort of say, stop being so rule-based, even though I agree with them. It's more when they sort of lead by example, and you see that if a conversation is starting to steer, instead of the admin being like, no, bad, like if they just sort of gently steer the conversation back, and then quietly delete a person.
Are the admins starting conversations, or are they encouraging just group members to start conversations?
No, they're certainly in there as well.
They're part of the community.
They're part of the
just
community,
ruling
absolutely.
from on high.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and they're engaging in the conversation, which is, again, what makes you connect to the community. What's great is when I don't really even know who the admins are so much, because it's just a bunch of community members.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm actually surprised that a person I've been engaging with for a while, I'm like, oh, they're actually one of the admins. I hadn't realized.
Now, another question I have on groups. Some of them, as you've said, have formed around just being the local community or being based around a fandom or something. Are any of the groups that you're a part of, as far as you are aware, run by some sort of business entity?
I'm not sure if one business entity is running a group. I've definitely found the NIAC. There's several groups and I don't know who runs them. And that's, I don't know if that's to the benefit or not, to not know who's running it.
In some of your geek groups, is one of them run by a podcast, or is it just fans?
No, it was the fans of the podcast, but it was definitely spearheaded by one podcast, The Weekly Planet, which is comic book news and stuff. And then they wound up growing and sort of creating a whole, you always say my Australians.
Yes.
It's an Australian podcast. And then they created a network of Australian podcasts. And then there were so many inside jokes going around and they were all guesting on each other's pods. And again, it's that concept of community that they created this group. And it's great because the group has completely gone away from just the pods. That's still on there, but it's really just a giant geek community. And whenever someone tries to steer it back to just the pods, it's just like, guys, this is a good community. And it's one of the few we've got that support each other online. So don't try and kill this. And it's interesting because when people there's an interesting line of when a community goes off of the rails, not even off the rails. Like, I'm a member of another podcast driven group, which was based on the Vlogbrothers. And it's become like, there's a lot more sort of, I need support in this situation and I'm having trouble in my life, or a friend is having trouble, please help me. And it's just like, that's not what I joined this group for. And and it's a shame, it's interesting where it's like, think about the people who joined your group. And I imagine it's similar to a brand or a company trying to create a sort of community. Like, think about where the parameters are, not that necessarily people are bad or wrong to post other stuff. It's just that it'll muddy up the waters of what that was about.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And you brought up another point, which is, I don't know if YouTube really counts as social media. In a lot of social media discussions, it is counted as a social media platform, even though it's not used the same way as, say, Facebook or something. And that's something that you are a lot more a part of than I am in terms of YouTube. Are you literally just passively consuming on YouTube, or are you getting into discussions? Are you commenting? How is your use of YouTube?
I tend not to comment. I've commented once or twice, but I don't think YouTube puts the tools out there to foster the conversation. Like, it's not threaded the way Facebook and the other social media platforms are. So yeah, and I was talking to you earlier about how YouTube, you have the personal brands and you have the personal people on YouTube posting content, and I'm mostly a consumer of content on YouTube. But it's interesting where the lines are with the corporations now that have joined, and like the bigger things. Like, I was asking you earlier about the idea of How does, let's say, a local handyman wants to get their name out there and connect with their community by saying, hey, here's some do-it-yourself videos. Well, they've, got a little studio set up like we've got, whereas, people like Lowe's or Home Depot or these big company, corporations are putting out these really professional, systematic videos of how to do things. And it's just like, how would someone who's more local connect with their community in a way that someone's going to come to them for do-it-yourself things?
How have you generally been finding the content that you've been finding? Like you're a big part of fandom for certain YouTube creators and for certain podcasts. How do you find them, and how do you find the groups, and do those things kind of feed into each other? Did that make sense?
A little bit. I do subscribe to certain things in terms of the feed. So I do like check back on, oh, let me see that new science video, or let me see that new, comic book video or discussion. When I am trying to do it myself, I'll just do a search for something. And I have no idea how YouTube's algorithm decides which videos to show me. But I will say, when I'm looking for the video, I find the fluffy videos are the ones I move away from. So if I'm like, I want to see how to, hang a thing in plaster. If a video's like 10 minutes, I'm like, what are you padding this with? And I don't like, or I want to see what a thing is. And I go into it, and if they spend the first like 30 seconds talking about who they are and what they do, I'm just like, that's not what I came to this video for. I came here for a very specific content. So
if you're looking for entertainment, it's okay to be a little more polished. But if you're looking for how to do something, if you want to learn, you're more likely to resonate with a video that's a little more human.
No, I want to go to a video that just gets to the point. I don't care who the human is. Just give me the information it came there for.
It can be just as glossy. It just doesn't need to have all the extra crap.
Yeah, I don't care about the polished video.
Yeah.
I care about the content of the video.
All right, cool. Now the other.
Now wait, hold on. Shannon Boone said, "Wait, what? Wait, what on what?"
I don't know. Maybe she's astonished to hear that people fight on the internet.
Maybe she just deleted the wait what, so I don't know.
I don't know, or maybe it's just that I'm speaking.
Oh, it's cool.
or that I've got a hot guy share with
That's
me.
It. Oh, I see. The feed works in reverse.
Yes, it does. Yes. And the worst are live streamed YouTube videos where they spend 5 minutes waiting to start. And yeah, part of that is because they want to wait till they have an audience. Because if you just kind of get going and nobody's there, it's kind of like, but at the same time, you don't want people who bothered showing up on time to sit there with their thumbs up their asses. All right, so one thing that you had mentioned that you wanted to hear about was about why you would use specific platforms. And I want to specifically talk about the ones you don't use and why I'm surprised you don't use them. I want you to give them a try.
Yep, well, to summarize it for the people out there, because we already had this conversation.
Shannon's sarcasm about what? About the fact that people or the people fight online? I'm sure it's completely shocking.
But yeah, one of the interesting things I found is that with the character limit of Twitter, which I'm sure you're going to get into, and the images only of Instagram, Facebook has all of those things. And I understand why
Facebook has
you don't want all that distraction. You just want the images or the media. But to me, the biggest problem is dividing my attention. When Google Plus came on the scene, and I was like, I actually
R.I.P. Google Plus.
R.I.P.
Everyone knows Google Plus is gone now, right? It's leaving completely. They're like getting rid of it all in April.
When it came out, I really enjoyed it, and I was excited to be on the invite list.
I remember.
And in the end, I'm not going to share my content twice. As I mentioned, like I'm on groups, and like now I target my content to the place where it's going to actually be viewed by people. So Google Plus like started invite only. I don't like when social media
target my content.
When social media was new, it was great to be part of the new thing and invite only. But with a social media platform, the fact that they were just like, and you can have 25 friends come. Wee!
Yeah, we talked about that because like back when Gmail launched in the early 2000s, I mean, I felt super cool when I got my Gmail invite in 2005. And people would say to me, they're like, wait, you have a Gmail? How do you have a Gmail? I'm like, I have a friend at Google.
Right. But you don't need to be on the same platform.
That made Gmail exciting, that whole like exclusivity in the rollout. It's not how you do a social network. I joined Facebook because I couldn't not, because everyone was there.
Right.
And you too, you joined
That's
Facebook
exactly
a
why I
couple
joined.
years later.
That's why I joined MySpace.
I think you joined Facebook in like 2009 or something.
Yeah.
That it was after we got married.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember saying my husband's not on Facebook.
But yeah, it's absolutely
you joined after
pressure.
my dad.
But yeah, I didn't join social media to be part of the new cool thing. I joined it because
people are already there. It was already happening.
This is where you need to be if you want to be, it's similar to why businesses need to join Facebook.
Yeah.
This is where your audience is. This is where your community is.
And a social network isn't going to work if you can't socialize with
right,
people.
Exactly. And like I liked a lot of the rules and the things they put in place. I liked the way they structured their feed.
Yeah.
But ultimately,
I liked the structure of it. It could have been great, but no one was there.
Yeah. And the same concept of I go to a community to get a bunch of people. I go to my personal wall if it's really personal and get, a bunch of friends acting on it. But I wasn't going to go there and then be like, and now I'm going to post on Google Plus and get the 20 people that are on my friends list to see it,
Absolutely. So. And they didn't really figure out a good way to crack into it with businesses either.
Right. So now you can get to selling me on why.
I don't want to go on too much longer, but Twitter and Instagram. The reason I'm surprised that you're not into them. So Twitter, first of all, is where a lot of direct creators, including podcasters and bloggers and movie people, a lot of them hang out on Twitter. You can speak directly to the creators a lot more directly on Twitter than you can on other platforms. And there's Twitter chats. Twitter chats are great because it's a whole bunch of people who are interested in talking about a certain topic coming on Twitter at the same time and using the same hashtag to have that conversation. And there's a leader of the conversation, the person who hosts the Twitter chat. A lot of times there's also a guest for that Twitter chat, so they will answer all the questions, but so can you. And it's kind of great because let's say it's a Twitter chat and we're talking about the next upcoming Marvel movie and what we think is going to happen. And so there'll be a moderator who will say, okay, and they'll have a handful of questions over the course of the chat. And you'll just be a part of that conversation by using that hashtag during that time and being a part of those conversations. So I'm kind of surprised that you're not into that.
Well, I've seen you use that.
Especially when creators are in it. I mean, the way I use it, I do Twitter chats just for marketing. I do not boring to me, but boring work Twitter chats.
Right.
But I can see how it would be really exciting as part of the type of communities that you are a part of actively on Facebook, taking that sort of mentality to Twitter, but making it live and having a greater chance of interacting with the creators.
I think the creators aren't necessarily having conversations, the types of creators that I follow. I think most of them are posting a funny quote or a statement and then not necessarily engaging with that statement. And so that might be a good point. I haven't actually tested it, but again, it's that idea of I don't really go on social media to sink my time into it.
Yeah, that's fair.
I do sink my time into it, but that's not what I went there for.
Yeah, I do.
And whereas going there to engage in a conversation, you're actively being like, I guess I'll be here till the conversation gets boring enough for me to leave.
Yeah.
And I don't want to invest that much energy into it.
But that's a good point. You're not there for that. When you want to F around, you crush candy or you go through YouTube videos.
I don't want to think so hard. Yeah,
that's fair.
mindless.
I'm going to answer Scott's question. Scott said, what's the difference between a Twitter chat and something like a Reddit AMA? Well, part of it is that the chat is supposed to be more of a chat. A Reddit AMA, the guest who you're asking anything is the focal point and it's all about them. On a Twitter chat, usually that's not the case. There often is a guest. I've been the guest on many Twitter chats and I have several of those coming up. But technically, I am actually at the same importance level in terms of what I say and what the other people on the chat say. We can all answer the question. We're all part of the discussion. It's a lot more, I don't know, not universal, democratic. I don't know.
Equitable.
Oh, and Scott, also some else here. Groups on Facebook have been a good way to make sure my original content is seen by the right audience. You just have to learn who the mods are and make sure it fits their taste. Absolutely right. And Scott is very witty and a very good cartoonist. So that actually, I'm sure, comes in handy in groups. So then the other thing, Instagram.
Oh, that's the other thing, just based on Twitter and the AMAs and things like that. I have engaged in AMAs and stuff like that. And similar to
I didn't know you were even on Reddit.
No, not Reddit.
You're not a user, really.
Well, they're not just Reddit. They're on a couple of things.
Okay.
And when I've gone to the AMAs, usually you've got an audience of 1,000 people, but now it's not 1,000 people engaging in a discussion. It's 1,000 people bombarding the poster with questions. And I'm not there to like, I enjoy a filtered list of frequently asked questions. When it's just a giant stream of questions, I'm just like, I'll post my question and then it's like, did they see it? Are they going to answer it? All right, I'm tired. I'm going to leave. You know, so the AMAs never really did it for me, even though I do find like a culled and groomed, let's say, YouTube video where it's a bunch of questions where they answer the 20 most interesting questions. I'll find that interesting. But
another thing is you often show me funny articles that are basically roundups of hilarious things people have said around a given topic on Twitter. Or hilarious responses to a tweet on Twitter. Yeah,
I like it to be culled because I don't have the time to invest in. You like it to be culled.
You don't want to be part of that discussion. That's fair. But you're hilarious.
I am. I just the cost, the ROI of engaging in those is just not there.
Ooh. You're talking marketing speak to me.
Oh yeah.
And then the last thing is Instagram. So Instagram, it's such like a happy place. And like, for example, our son is a crazy talented artist, for those who don't know. I don't post as much about it as Greg does, but our 7-year-old is ridiculously talented. And so Greg has an album on Facebook of his art. And now we have one for our daughter too, because she's getting there. And I mean, I could see you making an Instagram of that. You know, Instagram is just kind of about conveying nice things visually. You also had a Tumblr that I could see being an Instagram. He had a Tumblr. He sees faces in things like everywhere. And a lot of people do that. But he's in a special talent for it. Like he'll look at like we'll be somewhere and suddenly I'll see him smile and I'll be like, what? There's a face in that fan. I see it. I see the eyes. So those are things that like would make sense. You see the world and experience the world in a very visual way. So I'm kind of surprised that you haven't turned that into an interest in Instagram. Instagram can be used all sorts of different ways. I have 3 Instagrams for those who don't know. I have one that's the one I had from forever ago that is now just our kids, basically, and that one is private. I have one that started out as a work one years ago, but is now my main one. Although I do kind of, it's always somewhat on brand. There's always red. I like small local businesses, you know, but it's the realist. And then there's the Nyack House, which is going to accompany a blog. I just am fighting with WordPress. So they can be specialized, they can be just life, but I'm kind of surprised your only Instagram post ever was a contest that Fireball Whiskey.
I joined specifically to post the stupid contest thing.
If you click on G. Gritmon's Instagram, it's about pouring Fireball Whiskey into hard cider, which we do. But that's your only post, man. But you experience the world so visually that I'm surprised.
I think, again, it comes to, I've definitely found that I have an aversion to constantly switching tools. I'll fuck around with 18 different games on my phone. But when it comes to the tools that I go to, like, I have no desire to, like, where should I post this content? I think it's similar to how, what's his name? Not MySpace, Tom. Facebook.
Mark Zuckerberg.
Mark Zuckerberg. He's got the same outfit. So I don't want to devote brain power to what outfit I wear in the morning.
That's fair.
It's like when I share content, I don't want to think about where's the appropriate place to share it. Like I just want to go to Facebook, post my thing and be done.
That's fair.
And I don't want to think about like, I've checked my Facebook, but I've checked my Instagram. And I know all of these things are completely not required to do.
By the way, Squall basically just called you pussy.
It is a gimmick drink, and I'm a very, very gimmicky man.
That's fine. He's man enough to drink whatever's yummy.
Scott, right. I swear to God, don't put the wine cooler comment on there that I know you're in the middle of typing.
All right. And then finally, to wrap things up, I had started this 5 questions thing. So now I ask 5 seemingly randomish questions to my guest at the end of every one of these, and just don't overthink them.
Yeah, this is why you didn't warn me about them.
Go. Exactly. First answer that comes to mind, just spit them out. I didn't overthink them either. They're dumb questions. All right. Friendster or MySpace?
Fireball Whiskey. MySpace.
AIM or ICQ?
Oh, wow. ICQ.
Really?
I worked for
Oh,
AOL. And yeah.
fair, fair.
Indeed.
Sega or Atari?
Oh, wow. I got to go with Atari there.
Yeah, I didn't put Nintendo.
Especially at that
'cause I knew.
disturbing Sonic the Hedgehog live action movie they're going to be making. Oh my God, he's twisted looking.
Desktop or mobile?
Ooh, I used to be desktop, but I'm mobile now.
John or Hank?
John or Hank? Hank.
All right, so that has been Mr. Gregory Gritmon. My wonderful
G. Gritmon on all the things.
G. Gritmon on, well, not on all the things, because you're not really on all the things.
Well, I'm G. Gritmon on all the things. I'm just not
That's true.
there.
If you're on them, you're G. Gritmon. I wanted to thank my wonderful guest. I also want to make sure you guys know about a couple of really important things. One of them is Social Media Marketing World. Social Media Marketing World is amazing. For those who haven't heard me talk about it incessantly, I'm going there in March. And I have an affiliate link. So if you want to go too, buy it with my affiliate link. You don't get charged anything extra, but I get a little bit more drinking money, which would be nice. And then also, I'm running a webinar, but first it starts with a challenge. But I'm running a webinar with Dorian Warren Van Dam, who hosted so graciously for me last week, called How to Social. It's a content marketing how-to, essentially. And instead of putting the links for both of those up, I'm just going to give you the link to my link tree, because that has all things. So just go to my link tree. You'll be able to see that. It's all glorious, all the links to what I'm up to. And another thing that's going to be up there shortly is my link to next week's show. Next week's show, because I do this every Friday at noon, whether I've had my tonsils out or not. Next week's guest is my friend Gina Doshbach of Peruse, the magazine creator. And we're going to be talking about why magazines are kind of the new websites. You wouldn't think magazines, would you? Their thing, trust me. Trust me. So yes, I have been Christine Gritmon. I'm going to go take a nap now. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Greg Gritmon, for joining us. Mwah. And thank you, and bye.